What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the series where I'm reviewing some of my older videos and giving you my brand new and updated list of top 5 exercises to do for each muscle group. Today, I'm actually going to combine biceps and triceps into one video. I think I'll just save you time, and I like saving time. I like saving you time. So let's start off with biceps, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and pick my top 3. I think realistically, you can get big, juicy arms just sticking to 3 bicep exercises, 3 tricep exercises. Obviously, in real life, I would use a variety of different exercises because variety is the spice of life. But I still reckon I could get pretty decent arms just sticking to 6 exercises. So my first choice when it comes to biceps would be the single arm dumbbell preacher curl. This is, well, it's a great exercise. What more can I say? The perks of this, first of all, is you are locked into position. Your elbow is firmly fixed on the pad. Your torso cannot move. There is minimal room for cheating, so you can maintain the majority of the tension on your bicep. Secondly, I like it a lot because you can actually assist yourself with the free arm. So when you reach concentric failure, you can actually help to lift the weight up to the top and take the negative until you can no longer take the negative, which is absolutely great. Second exercise, it's a pretty underrated one, in my opinion. It does the damage, does the job, that's for sure. It's what I would call a bicep-focused chin-up. Now, if you were to traditionally do a chin-up without really thinking about it, your back would probably do the majority of the work. It depends what is kind of more dominant. But you can actually emphasize the tension on the biceps when you do this by trying to keep your scapula fixed. So it's not like elevating or depressing, it's staying fixed. And you're having the intention of curling that fixed bar towards your chin. When you reach failure, just put a little bench or a stool underneath the bar itself and then just jump up and then take the negative. There is nothing that will burn your biceps and even your forearms more than this one. In fact, you don't even need to waste your time doing the weird forearm training exercises when you do this one properly. It literally sucks so much, like it's so uncomfortable, but the pump when you do this exercise is crazy. And it's one of the reasons why so many gymnasts have such jacked arms, because they do so many different pull-up variations. So don't neglect the pull-ups. I would have this exercise as my second favorite. The last one, I would probably incorporate some form of a cable bicep curl. There's a few different ways you could do it. You could do a single arm standing variation, or you could do a seated variation with both arms. The reason why I like this one, same with the preacher curl, is because you're placing a little bit more resistance at the bottom portion of the movement when the muscle is in more of the lengthened position, which is great. And you also get that added benefit of really just isolating one arm at a time. And when you do this, it just means that you can ensure that there's no imbalances occurring, like one arm is not doing more work than the other. And also when doing single arm, you can also just ensure that any elbow discomfort is minimized. Because when you do this, you can just tilt your torso to one side to ensure that your elbow is pointing directly downwards and is aligning itself with gravity. It's one of the reasons why I don't really do so much bar curling anymore, whether it be an easy bar or a straight bar. For most people, I wouldn't say completely skip barbell curling, but I would minimize it and go for single arm movements or cable movements. So much better in that regard. Moving on to tricep training now, I will almost always attack my sessions or tricep focused sessions with 3 different movements. First one would be some kind of a pressing movement. The other one would be an extension with the elbow next to the torso. The other would be an extension where the elbow is above my shoulder next to my head. I'm getting a very good stretch. They're the 3 which I would kind of ensure that I am including in the tricep training. So the first one, the pressing movement, you've either got some form of a close grip press variation where you could do close grip barbell press with a Smith machine, free bar, or you could do a body weight press. You also have the variation of doing some kind of a dip. Now, the dip could be body weight or it could be a machine. These exercises are probably not going to be the best if you notice that you're quite chest and front delt dominant. Now, that's really down to the individual, and you have to be quite aware of what is being engaged when you're doing these movements. I personally find that I can restrict how much delt and chest activation is occurring when I'm doing a pressing movement. But that being said, I feel as though when I do a dip, particularly a bodyweight dip, my chest always wants to do a little bit of the work. So even though I will still include these into my routine from time to time, I would probably go for some form of a close grip press, and I will alternate that between the Smith machine and the barbell. I feel like if I'm doing it by myself with the Smith machine, I can go a little bit heavier and I don't need to worry about the weight destroying me. The next tricep exercise I would do, if we're talking about tricep extension with the elbows next to the torso, I think the absolute don is the cable crossover, the close crossover machine. This one is just so good because, first of all, you're applying a lot of tension when the tricep is in more of its lengthened position, particularly if you lean further forward. And secondly, it's just a very natural range of motion for your elbow to be moving in. Okay, so similar to the bicep, if you're trying to do some kind of a press down with a fixed bar, then it's just going to be very uncomfortable to try and tuck your elbows in so much and have your elbows aligned with the force of gravity. If you're doing the cable crossover, then you can align your elbows up to the force which you're pulling along, and it's just going to be a lot more pleasant on your elbow joint. And it also allows you to go through a very full range of motion where you can lock out at the very end and squeeze the tricep. So an amazing exercise, which I recommend almost everybody should do. Moving on to the final movement for triceps, where the elbow is next to the head above the shoulder. I personally really like the overhead tricep extension machine. There's a few of these dotted about the gyms which I go to. It's probably not optimal for minimizing any kind of aggravation at the elbow joint. I think if I was to just do these all the time, my elbows might be a little bit shot. So probably not the best. You're probably better off moving to some sort of overhead tricep extension with a rope, particularly a long rope. The long rope allows your elbows to just move in a more natural direction and also allows you to go through a pretty decent range of motion. Probably better off doing it seated. If you're seated, then that means that you at least your torso is fixed. You don't have to worry about balancing, and you can actually lift heavier without you wobbling all over the place. So they're the three exercises which I do for triceps, and they're the three exercises I would do for biceps. And something which is very important, it's worth noting when it comes to bicep and tricep training, and it's probably one of the reasons why loads of people struggle to actually grow their arms, is because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. There's three things which they need to take into account. First of all, grip position. Okay, changing up your grip positioning can actually have a massive impact at activating different muscle fibers in the biceps and the triceps. So you need to do that. Second of all, you need to pay particular attention to the tempo at which you're lifting. If you're using the same tempo for every single exercise, for every single lift, then your body's just going to adapt to that very quickly. So you need to alternate the tempo. If you are doing a 3 or 4 second negative when it comes to doing some of these curling or extension movements, it is going to be a big eye-opener for you. And it's one of the reasons why I keep telling everybody who's using my app to follow the tempo at which I have given them on every single exercise. There's a reason why I've given you a tempo to follow in the first place. Okay, it makes a huge difference. And it's massively underrated. And the last one, you actually need to pay particular close attention to your programming when it comes to training arms. Okay, so an approach which I like to follow, which is very effective, is actually going through phases of high volume and then lower volume, but with increased weight. Okay, so the high volume phases, which you might do for 4 to 5 weeks, the rep ranges are much higher, the rest periods are lower. You might be doing supersets, you might even be doing triceps. These are what I would call pump sessions. Then, after a couple of weeks of doing that, you would go into the intensity phase where you're focusing on strength. So the rep ranges are much lower, but the weights you're using are much higher. So that combination of varying it up between doing the higher weights, the lower weights, the higher volume, the lower volume can also have a massive effect at growing your arms. So that is why, again, following a training program is very important to do, particularly if you are not seeing any progress. So I know a program that can help you out with that, and they're all on the Thirst app. So I recommend you signing up to that and getting yourself stuck in. Let me know how your progress goes. So that is that. 6 of my favorite exercises, 3 for bicep, 3 for tricep. Of course, I'm going to have more exercises which I follow. As I mentioned before, variety is the spice of life. But if I had to stick to just 3 bicep, just 3 tricep, I would probably do those 6, which I've mentioned. So thank you for watching. Make sure you check out all the other muscle groups which I've talked about. Chest, back, shoulders, legs coming very soon. See you in the next video.